that's, so everything that happens in the preschool reflects society and back and forth,
that's
right?
True.
A lot of the things you get from society, and this is not only Japan, is obedience and formality, right? Now there's uses for those things. Those are not completely useless concepts, but strict obedience to those forces is not what we want children to learn. Children that grew up in the 1980s or 1970s may not have imagined such a globalized world.
Yeah, that's right. That's us.
we did not imagine that we would have this tablet and that everything we would do would be typed. We thought we'd be writing in handwriting more than we are. So the future is very unpredictable on a societal level. So a lot of those old formalities become obsolete.
Right. So these 30 years, 40 years, the world has changed dramatically. So from now, let's say in 20, 30 years, it's unimaginable, I guess.
Yeah. The children that we're teaching, they are going into a unforeseeable situation in society. So we want to prepare them with a flexible mind that can adapt to different cultures.
Right.
Globalization is probably not going anywhere, and most likely, if children want to succeed from Japan, they will have to have some sort of intercultural skills.
Right.
So children that are graduating from preschool to high school in Japan, they're in a very rigid system that does not translate to other cultures.
Oh yeah.
So some of their instincts of obedience might be looked at as being weak or unmotivated, which could give them a disadvantage in a global workforce.
I think so. Right. Of course, we have an advantage, but we have huge disadvantage when compared with other countries. And then, as you said, non-cognitive skills, which is like a creativity, critical thinking, those skills are necessary, for the next generations. But under the Japanese education system, it doesn't work at all. We need to change it. But before that, we have to change, parents' mindset. It's 180 degrees difference, right?
Right. So, like a Reggio-inspired approach or a constructivist approach to education is about a 180-degree turn from traditional Japanese education. So for me, the thing is, if you're coming from a very rigid, formal, almost military type of system, adapting to personal freedom and an environment where you need critical thinking and creative skills is more difficult than coming from a place where you have those skills and you want to contain yourself within an organized system. For myself, speaking anecdotally, I grew up in alternative schools. Those schools had no homework, no tests, very much freedom from early education on in terms of what the students wanted to learn and what time of day they wanted to learn it. And when I was 12, I went to a public 6th grade school in America. Now,
it's completely different.
Completely different. We sat in rows. We sat in a chair at a desk in rows, looking at the blackboard, and the teacher would call out random multiplication questions, and people would raise their hand and answer them. Now, one thing I did not get in the alternative schools was rigid drilling on my multiplication tables. So I was slow to adjust to some of those things.
Okay.
But as soon as I did adjust, I found it to be quite easy to simply sit in a line, say an answer when they asked you, turn in a homework, which was never very challenging. And then whenever there was a creative project, I was always very well prepared to accomplish that. So I found it quite easy to move from a non-cognitive focus to a very task-oriented focus. When you learn to think critically and when you learn to make your own choices, you learn to adapt to unforeseen situations. And because
Whatever it is.
Yes, because traditional education is a very predictable model of routine, it's very easy to understand that because
they don't need to think.
You don't
just
need
follow
to
the
think.
rules, right?
Yes, because traditional education is based on a model that some people would call the Industrial Revolution model, where that type of schoolroom education was training children to become factory workers. Today, a lot of people work from home, right? And who's succeeding right now? The creative types.
Exactly. The people can be replaced.
They're struggling. They're struggling.
Yes.
And I believe that that's completely unjust. And so the children that would ultimately graduate from Mint Leaf, I hope that they would have the skills to make the best out of a difficult situation. You know, we want them to be able to ask important questions and not just believe the everything is okay statement, you know, but we want them, and then we want them to read information and know whether it's credible or not, because we want to teach them through inquiry-based learning.
Right.
We want them to be able to ask questions. And as Dylan was saying, you know, we're teaching more than just English. We're teaching a way of thinking that is adaptable to really any culture.
Right.
It's not an anti-Japanese
No.
type of thinking at all.
No.
Like you said, there's many advantages to being a child in Japan.
You know, most of Japanese is said, you know, conservative. I agree with it, but not everyone, but most of them. So their mindsets are more fixed mindset. So I want to change their mindset to growth mindset. So which is not easy, but what we have to do is change it to the growth mindset, so that it's kind of like the same as a Reggio Emilia type of education, right?
Yeah.
Change in a good way.
So some of the fixed mind that I see in Japan with the government and the education is blind obedience to seniority.
Yes.
Just because somebody has more years in the company or more years on the earth than you, you always accept their idea.
Right.
To me, respect for elders is very important.
But respect and obey is different.
Much different. That's a great point. Yeah, blind obedience doesn't benefit anybody.
No.
I don't think.
When you have a meeting, you know, they choose the opinion because he is the boss, not because of the content what he said.
Right. So that's
Very bad critical thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Now a good boss will also not follow blind obedience.
No.
Right. A good boss will listen to
Everyone.
Yeah, their subordinates,
Yeah.
and if it's a better idea, they will go with that idea. So how do we, as a school in Japan who's trying to do something different, convince the average Japanese parent that what we're doing
So first of all, we need to accept the differences
between
anything. For example,
accept
like,
differences in general.
accept differences. Like Japan. I mean, U.S. is like a melting pot, right? There's so many people from different background, different skin colors, different religion. But here, 95% of Japanese. So which means we have a same background, speaking same language, same color, same looking. That's what happens here. But it's globalization, globalized. So you have to have your opinion, and then you gotta speak out in front of everyone. It doesn't really matter he's your boss or he's your, your subordinate or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So we need to let parents know that we're teaching children to ask questions of authority, but also to respect the community and to respect each person as an individual. So it's possible to ask questions and to be open-minded, but still respect elders and to respect authority.
Right.
Because we're going to teach them to ask questions and to discuss disagreements in a way that shows respect to both parties.
Right.
We want to encourage questioning. We want to let children know what is appropriate, but we don't want to hammer the nail down. Yeah, the whole spirit of our school will be one of co-learning.
Like no one is perfect. Everyone
Right.
make mistakes. We can learn from mistakes. So making mistakes is a really good point.
That's another thing that reflects on all of Japanese society. When I was
Yeah.
teaching high school, it was very hard to get any student to volunteer to answer a question because everybody
wanna
was-
make mistakes, right?
Yep, they were so afraid of making a mistake, and so they would be quiet. They would look to their friends. Both friends would laugh.
We don't.
They would look here. They would look away from
Yeah.
me, and sometimes they would answer.
Yeah.
But sometimes they would just be silent. If you're looking to hire somebody, or if you're looking to work with somebody, that response is not the most inspiring. Right.
I don't mind if you make mistakes, just one opinion.
Right.